Hey everybody, Tom here with Hidden Beats, and today we're talking with Andrea England. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing good, sitting in my office though. Wish it would be a little bit more sunny in here, but it's not.
Well, you know what? Look, you got your Blue Jays hat on, so
Hmm.
sun's gonna come out.
Yeah, exactly. So we're here to talk a bit about the four chords and the truth. I think is that I wrote the name down
That,
wrong, I think here.
that is it. Four chords and the truth.
Hmm. But before we start, can we get a little intro about who you are and your what you do, really?
I'm a songwriter, primarily. I am from Nova Scotia originally. I grew up there. I've been living in Toronto now for a long time. And yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter. I work on a number of kind of different projects in the music business, and I do some work for CMRA. I'm on the board of the Songwriters Association of Canada as well. I do some, lyric education, I guess, as well. And then as a writer, I founded Four Chords and the Truth in 2015 as a means to kind of bring together and showcase some of the songwriters I was working with at the time. So it's kind
Hmm.
of all music all the time, whether on the creative side or on the business side for me.
No, that's awesome. How did you get into music at an early age? Like, did you buy an album and you're like, man, I really want to try to do stuff like this?
Well, you know what? Earliest memories really are road trips with my parents. And I was an only child, so they took me everywhere with them pretty much. And they loved road trips. So whether it was Boston or Ontario or, everything's a road trip in Nova Scotia anyway,
Hmm.
right? And I just remember kind of this was probably realizing now I should have had a seatbelt on, but standing up in the back seat of the car and listening to them playing country music. And they loved like old school, Hank Williams, Patsy Cline,
Hmm.
and country music really in stories. And so they were massive fans of music, and it just translated to me. But I will say at the time, as I got older, I started wanting to listen to pop music, and I didn't want to listen to country because I was, a teenager.
Yeah.
But then as I got older, that obviously got in my veins because storytelling is everything. And so now I like all genres, but country is a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I kind of grew up a similar way, listening to country and the old school stuff. Like my grandparents, they used to call it whiskey jack music was
Right.
yeah, so I
Great name.
started with them and then my mom and kind of worked into it. But I'm same as you know, I like a bit of everything. So music is great for hitting little bits of your soul in certain ways.
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. It really resonated with me. And I think too, being an only child, it was another kind of presence or in the room, you
Hmm.
know. I'd go to sleep at night and it was either TV on or music on. And so I just can't remember a time where it wasn't important. And then I remember my grandmother had an organ, and I think they found me picking out the tune of You Are My Sunshine, kind of by
Okay.
myself, sitting there playing it. And so then they realized, oh, wait, maybe I have, like a musical ear. And then my folks put me in organ lessons, like Hammond organ. And so then I kind of did that growing up, and I was like the organ, and they would dress me honestly dress me up in little cowgirl outfits, and I'd sing at the community concert or the
Mm,
church
yeah.
or whatever. So it just became kind of I guess, a thing. And then I went to university, and I just always did music kind of as a hobby right up until I realized, wait a minute, I can, I joined a band and they were writing original songs, and I started writing original songs, and it just became I think what it was always meant to be, really. It was kind of a career path.
No, it sounds like it's kind of in your blood from early on for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there was really no one in my family at the time who was a professional musician. So for the longest time growing up, it was kind of a hobby because I just didn't, small town fishing village, rural Nova Scotia, didn't really realize it was possible, So before American Idol and all of the shows and all of the things, right, that people grow up with now, right?
Hmm.
5 years old, you turn on the television and kind of see the music being presented in a certain way. But I'm glad in a way because it's really organic for me. It's really organic to, just think about the stories and connecting with people, whether listening to them or, creating something and having it resonate.
And music isn't done the same way anymore.
No.
There's a little bit less focus on story in some aspects, and then more like commercial and try to get something out now. So I can vibe with that idea of feeling the story from a song for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so I write for myself, and every once in a while I put a record out, and then in the meantime I write with and for other people. And I only write songs for myself when I'm compelled to. Like I feel, oh, I got to talk about this, or I have to, work through that, and then I write the lyric, and the music comes, and I do that. And then when I'm writing for other people, sometimes I might bring a snippet into the room from, that moment where I was starting to write something for myself, or it could be purely organic based on what they want to write about, or what's on in the news, or whatever it is. But I really feel compelled that you have to follow the muse or follow the truth, really.
For sure. And jumping ahead, so what prompted you to start or like found the four chords? I know you said you want to showcase some people, but how did the idea of putting this all together come
Yeah,
out?
so I mean, I grew up in Nova Scotia, and my very first, I think, showcase ever was in a songwriter circle out east at the East Coast Music Awards. And then Bruce Guthrow created something called the Songwriter Circle, Bruce Guthrow Songwriter Circle out there. So showcasing in that kind of format has been a big deal on the East Coast for a long time. So I grew up with it, and I think Bruce founded that circle after doing some trips to Nashville, where he kind of saw them doing songwriters in the round in Nashville. And the way that it started, and the Bluebird Cafe is famous for it, is songwriters after sessions, often they get together and sit with each other in a circle or in a round or on the couch or wherever and play their songs for each other. So the way the Bluebird sort of, I guess, the songwriter circle started was songwriters playing for each other, and then the audience watching and kind of being, brought into that circle. So I've seen lots of iterations of that. And, folk festivals, they call them workshops, and four people line up on a stage and they tell their story and then they play it, the song, the way it was written. And so I didn't invent the songwriter circle, but what I did was I saw that a lot of them were either all folk or country, and definitely based in those genres. And I write with hip hop and pop and country and folk. I write with people who work in multi genres. And I didn't see a lot of them in songwriter circles. And maybe people assume, oh, this person writes to a beat, therefore you can't play. Sure, you can. You can take any song and you can break down the original chords of that song and take a vocal and one instrument, right? So I, at the time, was writing a lot with a good friend of mine, Liz Rodriguez, an incredible writer, and like so many writers, doesn't play out a lot. She's kind of a songwriter, is an artist for sure, and a great singer-songwriter, but is very focused on writing for other people and kind of with other people. And, I would just be sitting around and playing with these people and talking about them. And, oh my goodness, Liz is such a great singer. Or, oh my goodness, so-and-so is amazing. And where are they playing? Well, they don't have any gigs because they're, working on other people's records at the moment. So I thought, I'm just going to do a songwriter circle. And originally I did it way back when I first moved to Toronto, and it was Andrea England and Friends at Say What, like many years ago. And I did it for a couple of years. And then in 2015, I thought, you know what, we don't really have kind of a grassroots one here. Songwriters Association of Canada does a songwriter circle, did it for many years, called Bluebird North and then Songbird North. But there kind of wasn't one that was, outside the music industry, like for people in the community who, maybe have no idea about songwriter circles. So I called up my buddy at the time, Sean Kramer, actually, I guess he became a buddy through Four Chords. And I just called him up and had performed there as an artist and said, I want to do a songwriter circle with some of my friends and co-writers. Can I do it? And he said, absolutely. So the first show was Liz Rodriguez, Paul Reddick, who is an incredible blues player, and then Colin McDonald from the Trews. He's from Nova Scotia. We had just written something and I got to know him. And so we did that. So that was the lineup. It was me and the three of them. And, Liz writes in pop and hip hop, and Colin's rock, and Paul is blues or Americana blues. And I'm sort of folky singer-songwriter. So there was the multi-genre circle. And then Serena Ryder happened to have just done a duet with Colin. So she showed up for the
Okay.
show and ended up getting up with Colin and singing their duet. And that was it. By the end of the night, people were saying, well, when's the next one?
Yeah.
I'm like, let me get right back to you on that. And so at the time I knew somebody from Jack Daniels, and he was like, do you want some Jack Daniels money to kind of help get you some artists and help support this show? And I said, yes, please.
Hmm.
And that was it. So we started doing them quarterly, or I started doing them quarterly. And it's just been a blessing. And so many songwriters have, jumped at it and been gracious to come and play it. And so here we are. And yeah.
Well, that was going to be one of my next questions, was how hard it was to get off the ground, but it seemed like it kind of just flowed nice and smoothly.
I mean, when you start with Liz, Colin, Paul, and then Serena showed up, and she did us a solid. Honestly, she get that just that establishes a bar or a level of excellence, I think,
Hmm.
for the show. And then, the next one, uh, you just build on every show that's come before. And so we've had over 120 songwriters at this point. We've had everybody from, Rose Cousins to Joey Landreth, Donovan Woods, Andy Kim, Sylvia Tyson
Okay.
came, and, the Hall of Fame came and did some songs with us. It's just Julie Black, Justin Rutledge. I mean, we had Justin Rutledge and Julie Black on the same circle.
Hmm.
And
That'd
so
be
you have
something.
like an R&B queen and, folk troubadour. And you would normally not see multi-genres on the same stage, and then people singing harmonies impromptu. So the fans, I mean, I would say almost everybody who came to that first show bought tickets for the second. And
Hmm.
then as of 2017, we started selling out without a lineup.
Just instantly, it was a sellout.
Just, yeah, well, somebody came to me and said, look, I'd like to buy the whole year.
Oh,
If
well.
you're going to do four, and then I said, well, I can't program four shows in a year ahead. So he's like, I don't care. I know you'll program something great. So I just want to buy all. So I went to the club and said, hey, can I just have 4 dates? And the first that year, 2017, that night of the first show, I said, hey, we have the rest of the show. It's going on sale tomorrow morning. And by the end of that week, we sold out the whole year, and it hadn't
Wow.
even been booked yet. So I've had the privilege of the last, several years of booking sold out shows after the fact, including this one, a TD Music Hall. It sold out the first couple days,
Hmm.
and then I booked it. So
I mean, that's pretty awesome to be able to have that accolade just instantly happen for you after what seems like that smooth transition.
well, the pandemic hit, right? So we had some shows in 2020 planned,
Hmm.
and then we couldn't execute because of
Yeah.
COVID. So we had to cancel them. So in the meantime, what do you do? When's it coming back? What's going to happen? And I had always jokingly, people had always said, well, you're selling out all the time. You need a bigger venue. But for me, it was about supporting my community, supporting the Unison Fund. We also raise some money for them and promote
Hmm.
awareness of what they do. And I also usually invite an emerging songwriter to sit on the circle with us. So it's about building community, building connections. And I didn't feel like I could do it online. But we found this cool platform where we were able to, have a pre-show, and we had Jack Daniels do like a mixology thing before the show, and we were able to
Okay.
do virtual seats. Because one of the things about Four Chords that's really fun is because we were at the Dakota, it was a small venue, no assigned seating. The show would start at 7. The doors would open at 6. People would come at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and start lining up, even
Hmm.
though they had tickets, to get a good seat.
Yeah.
And so over the years, people in that lineup started to become friends. And so they would look forward to seeing each other every quarter. And it became a real community. And so we were able to do one when I was able to do one online I think it was in 2021. We were able to create the virtual tables and do the whole thing, and it went really well. But people would always joke to me that, you need a bigger venue. And for me, the vibe, like I said, was really important in that sense of community. And so I would always joke and say, well, until we can go to Massey Hall, we're not moving because the Dakota's perfect.
Hmm.
And it was a dream, right? It was kind of like almost a way of saying, no, we're not going anywhere, because there is no other place that has kind of in my mind, the credibility of the songwriter credibility of the Dakota, except for the
Mm-hmm.
Massey Hall group of companies. Also, I mean, you look at the Horseshoe, great for rock, great for other things, and the Riv, but for like the songwriter circle, it just felt right. And then I was having a conversation. I ended up chatting with the Massey Hall folks during the pandemic, and I jokingly said that because I was trying to rent the venue to do an interview, not rent the venue, but do an interview while they were under construction.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew about Four Chords, and I said, yeah, jokingly, this is my dream to be here one day. And they said, well, we're building a new venue within the Allied Music Center, and it's a 500 cap, and it would be a great next step. So
That
I
kind of worked
said,
out.
pardon?
I said that kind of worked out.
So I just was like, yes, please. Yes, I would love to do that. So that was in 2021. And then they had some, it took a while for the construction to be done and so forth. So I just waited and
Mm-hmm.
waited. And so it is tomorrow. It's happening. Really excited about the lineup, really excited that people are so nice at that venue. And it's just, it's a bit of a dream. It's exciting.
No, that sounds awesome. I'm based in Ottawa. I'd love to get out and
Oh,
actually check it out one of these days if I could, and check. It seems like almost like a down home little party get together, but in a larger scale.
yeah. I used to call it a big show in a small room.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a big show in a slightly bigger room. you know
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's a gorgeous venue, state of the art sound. And you let me know if you want to come. Actually, I'm going to be announcing, as we do at Four Chords, we always announce the next show at the previous show. So I'm going to be making some announcements, but you can put November 16th on your calendar if you feel like you want to come up
Okay.
to Toronto.
I mean, I can work with that probably. So one of the questions I have, and it's because you've experienced a couple different things in the music landscape, is what's your what's your thoughts on how the music industry is progressing now, coming out of COVID, moving into a super digital age? How do you think things are moving at this point?
I mean, a lot of talk about AI.
Mm-hmm.
Talk for an hour about that. I don't think great writers have to worry about any of that. People want, I think, more than ever, coming out of COVID, you know, people are still a little concerned in big spaces, but I think shared experiences really trumps any of that. And it's just going to take a little bit of time. And certainly people who are, immune compromised or living with elderly relatives or, have, everybody has to take care of their health
Mm-hmm.
and people around them as best they can and based on, whatever makes them comfortable. But I think people are really, I mean, we sold out the pre-show in 11 hours.
Yeah.
So to be in a room, I think a sense of community brings a kind of safety and an emotional experience that you can't keep away from people. People just, we need it. We're social beings. And I think also part of the community that we built, like I always think, for 3 hours every quarter, I get to make sure there's love in the room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have values that I have values that I live by, and I've put that on Four Chords. So, we want a safe, loving, respectful, inclusive space where, once we're on that stage, everybody's just a writer and we have stories to tell and it's okay to be vulnerable. And our crowd, you can hear a pin drop from the moment the clock hits 7 until we're done, except for when people are laughing or crying or applauding.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a beautiful, respectful community that's been built. And honestly, our fans, I know people say this, but they are so loyal and so like wanting and ready for like to be moved. They just want it. And so as a performer, to be able to look out into the crowd and look at any one of 100 faces or now 300 and see them looking right back at you
Mm-hmm.
and listening to every word, it's an experience that like it's beautiful. And every time a new songwriter plays Four Chords and they get that feeling, they get to see what we've built and it's great. So I can't wait till tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
night.
No, it sounds like an awesome experience for sure. And Is there any artists out there that are kind of up and coming that you're excited to see? Maybe they'll stop by and join in on one of
Well,
the
we do
sessions.
have, yeah, so it's exciting because, you know, TikTok is a great platform for emerging creators of all kinds.
Mm-hmm.
And some songwriters have broken on that platform and broken on, you know, the other platforms as well. But so TikTok, we're introducing something called the TikTok seat.
Oh,
So
nice.
we do 3 rounds, which means so we have 5 kind of established songwriters on the round. We each do a song. And then the second time around, I give up my song for an emerging songwriter who's great, but you know, maybe isn't as established or as well known as the other songwriters,
Mm-hmm.
an emerging songwriter, but can hold their own on that stage. And I give up my seat for them. So, you know, I got to know the TikTok folks a bit over this last year, and they saw what we're doing and they want to support emerging creators and Canadian creators. And so we're calling that the TikTok seat. And they basically help me find, they provide, I get 100% curatorial control, and
Okay.
they kind of let me know who's, you know, a number of people who are, you know, bubbling up in the local area. And then I look at our lineup and I curate it. And so Adrian Mitchell, who's from the area, is going to be in the very first TikTok seat tomorrow night.
Nice.
He's got quite a following and some super catchy songs. Lovely guy, and so we're excited to. I'm really excited for this sponsorship and what we're doing together.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that like Hidden Beats, we always look at up and coming artists, and like I like
Mhm.
to talk and find out a little bit more about who's going to be on that big stage next year because they're doing just that good. So it's nice to see that you're doing something similar, especially with TikTok, because it is such a huge platform at this point.
I mean, Robin Ottolini is one of the established songwriters on the circle.
Mm-hmm.
Robin had a big breakout with F-150 on TikTok, you know, it during the pandemic. So, you know, I think it's just a great place for emerging. It's a great platform for emerging songwriters and discovery of new talent. So I'm happy to be able um you know, for them to be a part of the show. It's exciting. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because you know, organically too, we hear about people in the community, and then you know, other songwriter. I'm going to be starting a Four Chords in the Tooth advisory committee actually after this show, where you know, I have lots of people in the community who will call me up and say, hey, think about this person for the next Four Chords, but I curate it very carefully. So I do kind of, I book one person in a genre, and then I make sure, so if I have somebody in the country seat, I'm not going to book somebody else who's traditional country right next to them. I'm going to have like a pop R&B person.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to show people that a song is a song is a song, and that a track is a track. You
Yeah.
know, that's genre. Really, at the end of the day, when you strip it all away, it's a story, and we're all folk singers, you know? So we all got something to talk about that relates to either our hearts or our communities. And yeah, so yeah, it's been a long time coming, but it's here.
I mean, hey, I can definitely send you some names periodically. I always come across new and unique people, or even a couple locals here in Ottawa that I know that would be probably really suitable for something like that.
Absolutely. You know what? I came up in Ottawa as a songwriter. I mean, I kind of was doing some singing in Nova Scotia, but I lived in Ottawa for a bit. And I remember, I think, doing one of my first shows at the Elbow Room, and then I did Zaphod's.
Yeah.
I think my first full show as a singer songwriter was at Zaphod's Beagle Rocks.
Yeah, that was a classic venue for sure.
Yeah, Zaphod's 2, I think it was called, that one. I think there was one before that, but
Yeah, I
yeah. So
think
Ottawa,
they did 3 versions of that venue at some point, or I can't
okay.
remember exactly.
But yeah, I remember opening up for Davenant Doyle and then Tara McLean and Kim Stockwood. I would be the maritime singer-songwriter who'd open up for the female maritime singer-songwriters coming
Okay.
through. And you know what? Tara has not yet, but Davenant and Kim have both been on Four Chords and the Truth.
Oh,
So
nice.
a lot of full circle stuff going on.
For sure. Now,
Show.
I have a couple fun questions that I like to ask, and it's kind
Great.
of more a little bit more personal towards you. First one is, what's something on your go-to playlist that people might not expect you're listening to?
people might not expect I'm listening to.
I call this almost like a guilty pleasure song.
Oh, my guilty pleasure is Celine Dion.
Okay.
100% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Celine's a powerhouse. Actually, so I'm actually a photographer first before I started doing these interviews. So I actually got to cover one of her concerts here in town, and it was, I don't know, it was just a whole different experience with Celine on that stage.
Oh my goodness, she is extraordinary.
Hmm.
And actually, one of the songwriters on my circle, Liz Rodriguez, so I mentioned her earlier, wrote 6 songs on Celine's last record,
Okay.
and has a song in the movie that just came out, Love Again, that Celine does a
Mm.
cameo in.
Yeah.
So she'll be singing a couple of those songs tomorrow night, and she's an extraordinary singer, as you one would have to be in order to have Celine Dion cover your
Hmm.
songs.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I love, I always go back to the Celine
No, that's
for
awesome.
sure.
Next question I have for you is, what's one thing you think should be asked more in interviews that's not asked enough?
Oh, that's a really good question, but you've been asking all good questions today.
I try to curate a little bit for specific types of questions for sure.
What do you value?
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, what do you value? Like, why do you do what you do? I think,
I mean, that
what's
actually ties
your
into my
motivator?
last question usually is
Okay.
when I'm talking with artists, it's why are you pursuing music? Why are you still walking this path?
Only connect. That's a quote from like an E.M. Forster novel. Uh, Not advocating necessarily novel. It's funny because I'll think of a book that resonated with me, and I think if I read it now, would I agree with it or not agree with it? But I think the reason we're here is to connect with other people, to make an impact,
Hmm.
and for them to make one on us. And kind of one of the other mottos of Four Chords, or kind of my life, is in whatever you do, also try to do good.
Okay.
So for me, this is about community. It's about elevating. It's about giving back. I grew up and my mom put on all the concerts at home. All of the Someone's house burned down, and they needed to raise money to help with
Hmm.
some, clothing or whatever. Needed somebody's, partner passed away, and like my mom was the one who would organize those. So I just grew up in a culture and in a community where all hands on deck. Let's all kind of help each other. So for me, if I'm not doing something to that effect, I don't feel like my day is done. So this serves a lot of that. I get, as a songwriter, I get to share my music, hopefully make an impact there. I get to share the music of other artists and other writers. We get to elevate new creators. We get to help make connections, and hopefully we provide a nice night of music.
Hmm.
Help unison, and yeah, I get more out of it than anybody really, because it when you give, you give back. So
Yeah, and I find that as a creator or an artistic person, you almost do things selfishly because everything you're doing for someone else still benefits you in the long run because you feel that
right,
type of connection.
I know, I mean, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it's been, when I started it, I didn't know.
Hmm.
I had no, I mean, it was one show. I didn't have any idea about a series or about longevity or anything. It was just, let's do this one show. And then that led into more. And it's just become one of the, most meaningful things and enjoyable things in my life. And so I'm going to do it as long as I can. And, you know, yeah, I'm blessed to have the
Hmm.
opportunity to do it and to now do it at TD Music Hall. It's pretty exciting.
So the future of Fork, you see expanding more, you try to do something extra, just kind of keep it as it is and see how.
I mean, we've had a lot of interest in taking it south of the border,
Okay.
and and I think we're contemplating doing Four Chords and the Truth, the Riverboat Confessions
Okay, that can be fun.
on a river, like a 7-day kind of all inclusive songwriters on the river in Europe.
Hmm.
So we're definitely considering doing those kind of experiences, because I think people want to have more than 3 hours of this. you know?
Yep.
And if you could marry meaningful music with meaningful life experiences and other cultures and traveling, and I mean, why not? So I think that's something that we're going to think about, maybe a cross Canada tour. But right now, just focusing on this next step, the show tomorrow night, the
Mm-hmm.
show on November 16th, and we'll see where it goes.
No, that's awesome. Is there any kind of final words of wisdoms or takeaways you want to impart to people before we sign off?
Tickets for November 16th go on sale tomorrow morning or Friday morning at 10 a.m. So I think the only words of it, and every time there's a new person who gets to experience it, uh, I love that. It's great. They
Well,
get
we'll make sure
to
we
see the
link
look on their
everything.
face when they're there, and then the glow afterwards. So
Mm-hmm.
and
I'll make sure we have the link for the tickets and all that stuff directly, and so we can get that right away as soon as I drop the video for people.
oh, fantastic, thank you. And final words: love is everything,
Mm-hmm.
and respect, love and respect. That's it.
I mean, that's a pretty good way to sign off, and I'm glad we got to have a chat, and then I learned a little bit more about you and about four chords because I can only read so much. So actually getting to understand more from your perspective is amazing.
Oh, well, I appreciate the time you've taken and love having the conversation. And if you ever want to come to the show, you have my number.
I'll definitely look into that. It's right around my birthday too, so it'll be a nice little
Oh,
birthday trip.
well, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll sign off now, but you enjoy the rest of your day. I don't think I'll have the video ready for tomorrow, but at least we'll be able to get it out pretty quickly so we can let everyone know about the November 16th show for sure.
Oh, thank you, Tom. It was really nice meeting you.
You too. Have a nice day.
Thank you.